So my name is Melanie Teresa King. I'm here with Mental Immunity Project. I'm also the creator of Thinking is Power. And what I wanted to do today was share some of the work that we're doing on creating lesson plans around inoculation theory. But just backing up for a second here, there's so much misinformation out there. And if we want our students to be able to survive the infodemic, we need to be able to equip them with the skills to be able to spot it. The problem is, it's like whack-a-mole. Like every time you can one down, another one pops up, and so on and so on. And yes, I always use cats if I can, because why not? Um, so what these lesson plans are based on something called inoculation theory. This was originally proposed by William McGuire. The idea is there's a vaccine metaphor where if you expose the body to a bit of a pathogen, then the body can build up an immunity to that pathogen. So when it's exposed in the real world, it has a defense against it. You can do something similar with misinformation so that you expose the mind to a bit of misinformation along with techniques to resist the persuasion. And then when the mind is exposed to that misinformation in the real world, it's more able to have defenses against it. Now, there's different kinds of inoculations. I'm going to be focusing on what we call active and technique-based inoculation. So technique-based is when, so fact-based is when I tell you the facts of why something is wrong. Technique-based is based on the techniques of a particular type of misinformation. And then active versus passive. Passive is the one-way delivery mechanism, whereas active is the creation of misinformation. This is basically pre-bunking, where you expose the mind before it is exposed to real-world examples. That's really hard, though, in a classroom because you never really know what students have been exposed to. And I will say that humor always works. I'm going to show you a few of the lesson plans, but they're essentially based on active technique-based. What that means is you teach the students how a particular type of misinformation works, the techniques behind it. And then you have them create examples of that misinformation using humor. It's kind of like if you had a child and they saw a magic trick, you could tell them it's not magic. You could tell them how the trick was done. But if you teach them how to do the trick, then they can spot it in the real world and know that it's not magic. Now, using misinformation in the classroom is essential. These are some like you're starting to get my sense of humor. Butt sunning, drinking urine, and that's ball slapping. So these are all examples that my students absolutely wouldn't believe. They're hysterical. People laugh at them. Great. So let's talk about why someone might believe this kind of thing and how this type of misinformation works. Because here's the thing, like it is, again, whack-a-mole, it's always coming up. I'm using what I call training wheels here, which is teaching the students how this works in a controlled environment, and using humor so that they don't get triggered or defensive. There's types of misinformation that are very identity important to us, and those beliefs are more likely to provoke a defensive reaction. Ball slapping does not tend to do that. So also, my students are college students. I might do the urine drinking with middle school students. These are some of the lesson plans that we currently have. They're at mentalimmunityproject.org or thinkingispower.com. Each of the lesson plans, these are topics that most teachers don't have a background in. They don't have time to dive into and learn. So what we're doing is providing them with background content that they need to feel comfortable covering these topics in class, providing them with downloadable resources, and showing them what standards they relate to as well. I'm going to show you a few examples just to show you how it works, and happy to answer questions. So, for example, conspiracy theories. Are you familiar with birds aren't real? Yeah. Okay, some yes, some no. So birds aren't real is a satirical conspiracy theory. Basically, the United States killed all of the birds in the 60s and 70s and replaced them with spy drones. So whenever you see a bird, it's spying on you. Right. So this conspiracy theory is great because if you watch people in this conspiracy, there's always an excuse for evidence. So you say, well, I see a bird right there on the power lines. And they'd say, well, they're on the power, they're powering up, right? That's why they're on the power lines. Or you'd say, well, a bird pooped on my car. Well, they're tracking you. That's what the poop is. Or one was, I shot a bird and I killed it and I ate it. And well, the government's doing great things with synthetic meat these days. The point is, this is a funny conspiracy theory that students aren't offended by, and it teaches them how conspiratorial thinking works, which is that evidence is always interpreted to confirm the conspiracy. Conspiracies become immune to evidence. It's motivated reasoning 101, always making an excuse for evidence to maintain the narrative. So we use this as an example, teach students how it works, and then, okay, now create your own conspiracy theory. Who did what and why, make it really silly. And then you put student groups together. This is the really important part. They explain their conspiracy to another group and try to convince them. But this group is trying to prove them wrong. This group has to find excuses for all of that evidence to maintain the conspiracy. And in this way, they understand how the conspiratorial process works, to see that when somebody is confronted with evidence that doesn't fit, well, they're using motivated reasoning. So conspiracy theories, because they're foundational to most misinformation, is a really important example here. One of our new ones is on tribalism. So show students the dress, right? They've all seen the dress, but it's really fun to be in a room full of people who see the dress differently. So you let them argue, really let them argue. And then, okay, team white and gold and team blue and black, put them together and let them form identities, like create mascots and slogans and team names and so on. And then you ask them to allocate rewards to their group and the out group. And this is based on Henri Tajfel's work, where he found that you don't actually need to apply any additional conditions to get students to favor their in-group and other the out-group. Actually, his studies found that even students would be willing to take fewer resources if it meant having a bigger difference between their group and the other group. So students experience what it's like to be to favor their in-group and another one. So in this way, they learn how conspiratorial thinking works. How am I doing on time? Do I have time for one more? Yes? Okay. One of the first ones I start with is from I'm forgetting his name right now. A psychologist in the 20th century. What he did was he gave students personality tests, including things like this. And so you ask students then, how accurate are these personality assessments? I do this whole fake thing where I have a friend who's a psychic and she's really great and written books, and I'm going to take some information from you and give you personality tests, and then you give them back and like, how reliable or how accurate are these? She was like, wow, how in the world could she know? Wow, this is so great. And then you have students talk to each other. Why was it accurate? What did you notice? What really applied to you? And it's a whole page, right? Sometimes it takes them 10 minutes to realize they all got the same reading. So then you can start to have them understand why they would be fooled by this. Confirmation bias, the Barnum effect. I appealed to authority. I primed them. But I put this lesson at the beginning of the semester because I want students to know they can be fooled. Like I could tell students I could fool you, but most people think they're too smart, right? Misinformation is somebody else's problem, not mine. So if I'm able to convince them that I can fool them, well, great. Now, if we don't want to be fooled, we need to make sure that we develop critical thinking skills and learn to recognize misinformation. So we have lessons on other things as well. All of them are based on these same ideas of having fun with it, having them create or be exposed to misinformation. They cover major topics like logical fallacies. There's another one on science denial using Cranky Uncle, which is a great game if you don't use it. There's one on how to sell pseudoscience, where students create advertisements for fake health pseudoscience products. Thank you.